Hey there, Patriots. This is True Outlaw Patriot coming at you again. This time with a message from the man, the legend, Donald J. Trump. It seems like Donald Trump put out a message a few hours ago, and he's talking about the auto industry, and it's something that I always, you know, always kept a close ear about. And one of the reasons being is that my truck, my truck is in great condition, but it's also 20 years old. And whenever I try to get new insurance policies, it's always good to try to, change it up every year. I keep hearing the same thing, and depending on the state that I'm in, they say, well, even though the truck's in great condition, but a lot of insurance companies won't insure it, full coverage, that is, because it's 20 years old and you can't get parts for it, which I find hard to believe, because I can pretty much rebuild my truck just by going to O'Reilly's and Pep Boys and stuff and just pretty much buying whatever I need and rebuild it. But that's the way they feel. But watching this video, there's a couple of facts in here that I want people to understand when it comes to electric cars and this whole Green New Deal. But without taking up too much more time, I just want to thank all the subscribers and people checking out my content. Please comment, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so I want to drop a video. But let's hear some words from at least in my time, the greatest president ever. Not that hack that sits in the White House now that stole the election, but here we go.
What's happening to our auto workers is an absolute disgrace and an outrage beyond belief. Auto workers are getting totally ripped off by crooked Joe Biden and also their horrendous leadership, because these people are allowing our country to do these electric vehicles that very few people want. And it's a mandate, so you'll ultimately be forced to drive in a car that goes for an hour and then you have to have it recharged. I hope you don't want to go very far away. Biden has imposed the outlandish requirement that 67% of all new vehicles must be electric in less than 10 years. That means Michigan and places that make cars, you can forget about it. You better get your union working, because you can forget about it. Those cars are all going to be made in China. According to the UAW president himself, one auto company CEO used the word brutality over 40 times in a single conversation to describe Joe Biden. I call him Crooked Joe because he's the most corrupt president in history. He's also the most incompetent. But Joe Biden's cruel and foolish electric vehicle mandate, that's how bad this policy is. Your union heads know it, but the union bosses don't want to do anything about it because they're not leaders. But you know who's voting for me? The people in the union. Yeah, the union heads and the Crooked Joe keep using the phrase fair transition. There's no fair transition. First of all, people don't want the electric car, and the ones that want it should get it. But we want to have all forms of transportation
and that's true. I mean, do I like the electric vehicles? When they first started really coming out, back in 2007, 2008, around there. Actually, a little later than that, about 2009, 2010. I was working at a hospital back home in New York, and one of my coworkers said that his son had rented one of those hybrids to go from New York down to Florida. And he said, being that it was half and half, that it only cost him at the time, I mean, gas was like $4 a gallon. He said that it only cost his son $53. I remember that, specifically, to get down to Florida, because he was switching over, gas to electric, which was good. But that's not normal in this day and age to have an all electric car. You're not going to get that far. You're not going to be able to drive, 10 hours straight or 12 hours straight or whatever the case is without having to pull over and then recharge. What Biden is doing, I mean, and anybody that supports him and the whole leftist agenda, it boils down to money. And China is the one making the batteries, So I agree with Trump, when he says whoever wants it, they should be allowed to get it. But you can't force it on the population, especially, and this is what nobody's understanding, the people that are fighting for it. They're talking about climate change, and with all the wildfires and the hurricanes and tornadoes and all that. So all these climate change catastrophes are knocking out the power grid in all these states where people are affected. So if they all had electric cars, how would they charge if there's no power for a week or two? You see where that go? You see how that goes? They make it seem like if everybody changes to electric cars, everything's going to change. The one thing that will not change on this planet is the planet itself. The planet's going to take care of itself and change when it wants to change. You know, but people are just too daft in the head to understand that. And they think that we can change the planet. God made the planet before he made man. People should open up the Bible and read that. But let's continue.
All forms of motorization to describe this unnecessary forced transition to electric vehicles. But there's no such thing as fair transition that destroys over 100,000 auto manufacturing jobs. It'll be much more than that. Wastes tens of billions of dollars that should be going to the workers and makes new cars entirely unaffordable for the middle class. That's a transition to hell. You're going to hell. And your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers. And it doesn't matter how bad they are, they'll endorse a Democrat, even though the Democrat's selling you down the tubes. Both the UAW bosses and the big three auto executives should be screaming at the top of their lungs. They should be ashamed of themselves, demanding that Joe Biden cancel his brutal electric vehicle mandate before it destroys the entire U.S. auto sector. If the union bosses and the CEOs refuse to fight back against crooked Joe Biden by forcing him to repeal this disastrous electric car scheme, then you will know they're not pro-worker, they're not on your side, they've got some deals going for themselves. And I'm telling you, you shouldn't pay those dues. You should not pay your dues because they're selling you to hell. You're going to be going to hell. You're not going to have any jobs. All those cars are going to be made in China. Every one of them. You can forget it, Michigan. You can forget it, South Carolina. You can forget it, everybody. All of those cars are going to be made in China. We sit on liquid gold and we're getting rid of combustion engines. And they sit on all of the other materials that you need for the batteries. They're going to make all those cars. We're not going to make any of them. So to every auto worker, I stand in total solidarity with you in your fight against Joe Biden's job-killing Green New Deal insanity. It's insanity. When I am your president, I will deliver higher wages for auto workers. I will protect your jobs. I will end Joe Biden's catastrophic electric vehicle mandate. And by the way, if you want an electric car, you're going to get it. But you're going to be able to get all other types of cars, types of vehicles that you want.
You see the way this man talks? He talks straight facts. You know, this is what people want. A person that says, you know what, I'm going to help you keep what's going right now that's working for you. But at the same time, if you also choose the other option, I'll make it possible for you too. Whereas Biden, the corrupt rhinos and people on I'm just going to say all Democrats from now on. So when I say Democrats, I'm including the corrupt rhino Republicans. They don't want that. They're like, no, we just want to pick one thing. Not what you want to pick is what we want to pick. And we want to get rid of the gasoline. And we want to put people back in the Stone Age, even though it's called an electric car. People won't be able to get around and function. Like me, I do home repairs. I do handyman work. Sometimes I'm on the road, you know, just traveling back and forth on a day where I'm doing, you know, checking out job bids and stuff like that. I can spend an easy 6 hours a day driving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, there's days I can put an easy 100 miles on my truck, without a doubt. What will an electric car do for me? Whenever, if I decide, you know, to go back to a state like Florida or anywhere where there's going to be like hurricanes and stuff, and, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones that's able to help these people out, you know, rebuild. What am I going to do with an electric vehicle? How am I supposed to get back and forth to pick up building materials and help people? This whole Green Deal It's exactly what it is. Green. It's all about the green. It's all about the money. That's all it is. It's not about saving people, helping people, clean up the environment. Because there's a hell of a lot more they can do with the billions upon hundreds of billions of dollars that they give, like the WHO and the CDC and what is it? All these other groups that talk about, oh, we want to mandate you and everybody else in the world to live, by our standards. It's not about, they're right. It's about living by their standards. It's not about living by human standards. And when Trump pulled out of a lot of different, how can I say, laundering schemes that have been going on, like the Paris Accord and stuff like that. People were like, oh, you can't do that, and that you don't care about human life, and his attitude was like, yeah, I do. That's why I'm pulling out all these other, these organizations that the American government under, Democratic dictatorship and Rhino Republican dictatorship, like with the Bushes, that they were taking American, taxpayer dollar and actually selling off the Americans, secretly making us, the American people slaves without them even knowing it. And he was like, no, we're going to save all that money and we could reinvest that money. But let's continue.
And on day one, you're going to be back in business with me, and those factories are going to start opening up again. Remember, when I got elected, I told you all about this in the campaign. And when I got elected, hardly a car company built outside of this country. I stopped it. They didn't go to Mexico anymore. I said, if you go to Mexico, I'm putting a big tariff. You'll make a car, you're going to have a 25% tariff if you send that car back into the United States. I stopped it. Well, right now they're doing it again, worse than ever before. We lost 32% of our industry to Mexico prior to my getting there, and we lost almost nothing. In fact, we were taking back our industry, but now it's going again. I'll straighten it out. But you have to vote for Trump. You have to vote for Trump. You can't listen to these union guys that get paid a lot of money and they get wined and dined in Washington. They know that electric cars are no good in terms of our workers. So vote for Republicans, but vote for Trump. Because if we don't win this election, our country, not only in terms of auto workers, our country will go to hell. Thank you very much.
And he's absolutely correct. I mean, there are ads now on YouTube right before the video start where they're doing a campaign about the concerned Republicans that are against Trump. Their new fear tactic is, that if Trump has to go up against Biden, that the Republicans will lose the election. Oh, as if Biden's doing such a great freaking job as it is. Like, seriously? I mean, that goes to show you how deep the deep state goes. They're already, you got these so-called Republicans. Well, in all honesty, I think it's a psyop. I think it's just Democrats pretending to be Republicans, and also with, like I said, the rhinos. But it's because what Trump wants to do is he wants to bring wealth back into the people's pocket. People say, oh, he's only doing that because he cares about the rich people. Listen, when it comes to business, you need a business owner and you need a worker. That's just the way it is. You can't have, there's no such thing as a utopia of all workers, and there's no such thing as a utopia of all business owners. Who's going to do the work? Who's going to implement what? That's just bullshit thinking. And it breaks my heart to see all these young people, especially coming out of college and stuff, they're just so much more stupid listening to the Democrats, the bleeding heart liberals, the climate activists, like that Greta Thunberg or whatever her name was, that they used that poor girl and they poisoned her mind to make people start thinking about stuff that there's, to this day, there's still no science to back it up. The real scientists that say there is no such thing as climate change in the sense of the way the Democrats and the evil governments around the world are pushing it, the evil elite, that science does not exist because what they're telling you is just a fairy tale. John Kerry, he was out on Capitol Hill and they were questioning him, and that man squirmed and bickered and moved around like he had a bug up his ass when they were asking him questions, simple questions like, well, you're like the climate change czar, but you're flying around the world, wasting, tens of thousands of gallons a year of fuel in your private jet and everybody else that works for you on different private jets. What do you say about that? His attitude's like, well, I mean, somebody's got to do it. I mean, he didn't use those exact words, but he might as well have said it, because he had no other, he had no other way of explaining himself. But it's true. You fly around the world, you tell everybody there has to be a new green agenda. Everybody has to stop using fuel. I'd like to see him get in that damn plane, run on batteries. Number one, the amount of batteries it would take for that plane to get off the air, it wouldn't get off the air. I mean, it wouldn't get off the ground. I mean, let's just put it this way. If everybody has seen like the go-karts, like in certain areas, certain states where a lot of people use go-karts to get around, like on the golf course or whatever the case is, right? Look at how many. Just go to one. If your neighbor has one, ask them. Pop open the section where the batteries are at. Look at how many batteries are in there for that little go-kart. The average electric car weighs so much more than a regular vehicle. And if anybody knows science, anything that's heavy uses up more power. That's just science. Okay? And people are like, no, it's not. Okay, take a book bag, take a duffel bag, put, I don't know, a 10-pound bag of rice and walk with it. You'll be fine. Try going up a hill with that same 10-pound bag of rice inside that backpack. You'll be wasting more energy. It'll be harder. That's exactly basic science. That's what it is with an electric vehicle. Now, to power that, you need 10 times more of that. But the ones that are pushing for the Green New Deal, for all these electric vehicles, what they're not telling people is the places where you have to charge them, what fuels that power station? Fossil fuel. And that's another thing. People need to stop calling it fossil fuel. Okay? The planet makes oil and gasoline and gas naturally. There is no such thing as there's oil there because of all the animals that have died. It is impossible to have all this oil, especially in untapped regions in the world, okay, where there was that many animals and dinosaurs that died and made oil. No. Oil is made by the planet. Just like the planet makes gold and copper and silver and salt, it makes gas and oil and gasoline. The planet does all that. This is God's creation for us to prosper, not to get greedy, get rich, and oppress people. Okay? This is why they needed to steal the election. Donald Trump wants to bring people forward. He wants to help them progress. Is he making bad deals on the side? I don't know. Am I gullible to think that he's not? I don't know. I'll be honest. But for people to keep believing that what Biden is doing, and then he puts a whack job like AOC in charge of this whole Green New Deal, because she was the one with the biggest freaking mouth. Now she's nowhere to be heard. I mean, nobody's heard from her. Everybody knows why, because she's out overseas, in these communist countries, trying to help them. Last I heard, she was in Chile, okay, dealing with their communistic socialist people, but that's another story. But you would think, with Biden saying that he's going to provide all these jobs, he hasn't provided anything new. Nothing new. I mean, there's parts of my truck. I mean, I'd say 85% of my truck still has its old Ford parts. And of course, some parts have, broken down. Why I got to get the new parts. But you can't really get them from Ford. I mean, you could buy them at Ford and pay top dollar. But a lot of those parts are made in Canada and Mexico. And there's been a few parts that I bought. Thankfully, nothing that would make the vehicle not run. But there are some parts that I've had to change in the past 10 years, 2 or 3 or 4 times. Because they're made in Mexico and Canada. Make stuff in America. Make these parts good again like they used to, like they will last. 2 other countries that I could probably vouch for, because I have seen certain, how can I say, merchandise or material that they make. I would say German-made goods and Swiss-made goods. They make some really good stuff when it comes to appliances and stuff like that. But America is where it's at, man. If people are coming here, it's because they want to be here, they love the country. We need to start making products that represent the ingenuity of the people. I mean, I remember years ago, so long ago, a friend of mine, he would always brag about that. Like, you have to buy American products. Buy American products. If not, they're going to sell it to the next bidder. And we're going to get, for the most part, he said, we're going to get shit products from all around the world. And he was right. A lot of products that we get, they're crap. And it's still at top dollar what we're paying for. Good American hard-earned money for bullshit made in China, made in Mexico, made in Canada. And I don't mean to offend anybody from Canada. I really don't. But I think that the powers that be in Canada, they're not letting the products be made the way they should. Because everybody's in cahoots with China. I mean, Walmart got busted about 2 or 3 years ago, and they're all over the place, all over the world. And they got busted for marking some of their products. I think it was over 100 or 200 of their products that they found out that no, they weren't made in America. They were made in China. And this is no knock on Mexico either. But the truth of the matter is, if we're outsourcing to have products made in these countries and their leaders are not letting their workers make really good products because they're outsourcing to China, and they're telling them, well, we're making it here, but we're using parts made in China and we're assembling it here, what good is that? It makes Canada look bad, it makes Mexico look bad, and it makes America look bad. So this is why I'm all for American-made products. And I bought certain things from Canada, Mexico, Japan, Japanese. Believe it or not, the Japanese, depending on the product, they make some pretty good shit. But I'm more with Trump. I've always have been when it comes to more jobs in America, more American-made stuff. People appreciate good quality work. And it just seems like, this trio in this part of the hemisphere, which is America, Mexico, and Canada, like, we're all combined to do certain things when it comes to manufacturing. But the leaders that are involved, like Biden, Trudeau, and whoever's in Mexico now, who knows, all the fingers point back to China. And Xi Jinping just stands there like, give me your money and here's your product. And then they take it and give it to their workers and say, okay, put that in the factory, put it together, and take whatever little bit that you made in the country and then couple it with the shit products that are made in China. And it's got to stop. Canada would do well if they can open up more factories there. Same thing with Mexico. Same thing with America. Same thing with all countries around the world. Let the factories reopen up. China makes nearly everything. And yet, it's the people in Canada and in America, the leftists, the socialists, the communists, that are bitching at us the most and the people in the UK about pollution. But yet, if China is making 90% of products worldwide, how bad is their freaking pollution? Think about that. How many factories do they have going non-stop? But yet they're pushing the Green New Deal here in America, in Canada, in the UK, and they're making us pay the price. Wake up, people. Wake up. And don't forget, vote Trump 2024. But anyway, I hope you like the content. Please comment, like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. And again, like I said, I have nothing against the Canadians or the Mexicans. I have nothing against anybody. But what I do have a gripe against is the evil elite in all these countries that want to take away from their citizens and make business deals with just one entity. And so far that entity is China. And everybody's getting screwed besides the ones that have their hands in the cookie jar. So don't forget, subscribe, comment, give it a thumbs up, pass it around, and hit that notification. And as always, stay vigilant, keep praying, and keep praying for each other. Peace.